Welcome to our lovely future humans and to those who are curious on the month number 1. So I was going to do a live, but the weather didn't allow me to for this lovely review of a 5D Mystic Skeptic Nutritionist Diary results. If you're new, you don't know anything about it, but I get to bring science and spirituality together. Although remember, please, I fuck up the words. I'm pseudoscience lady and I don't know everything. However, I do know that you don't mess with me and my biosphere. I was going to write you don't fuck with, but I said, let me write mess. That way it can actually achieve better visibility, and really it doesn't have to be that strong all the time. So I curse a lot. Yes, I get what others would say vulgar. I don't consider it that. But let's first start with the review. It went great. And I was very, very happy, as I was also surprised the challenges that I've been having, because as you all, those of you who are regular, know, I was in Italy, now I'm in America. The food is not the same in any way, shape, or form, and you spend, if not 3 times as more. So I had to chat with my nutritionist, and I asked for some options that might make it still just as nutritional, the value, although I love the fish that I get to have because I love fish and I love all the vegetables. But I just asked if there's any possibility for her to update my plan. I also felt very sad about this because I'm thinking there's so much unhealthy food, drinking, besides the drugs that we all know are illegal, but that still people do, and unhealthy bodies. So people who don't actually have the capacity to self-regulate independently of another human being. So when you do the emotional intelligence life, we've been talking about that. In fact, we have a bunch of shorts out there. So number 1, emotional, mental, intelligent habits involve that you are using your ventral vagal state. And so the world isn't really in a spiritual crisis. I heard this person talking about, it's like, no, we simply have the unimpressive minds out there who are complete, what was it? The Sadhguru had a quote about it. They're liars, but it's not that they're liars. It's that masculines, which it's not men. It's the left brainers, non-bilaterally integrated brain people. So long story short, though, that's why today we also talk about how words don't mean much, because actions mean everything. Compassion means everything. You have integrity when you have compassion, because your insula lights up, your amygdala is alerted, your temporal junction, and you move into your prefrontal cortex. And so in a physiological state of compassion, now I have an emotionally, mentally, physically intelligent person who does mental fitness as a lifestyle for real, therefore intentional living. And in fact, there's your integrity with consistency. And so while others use words, and so for them polyamory are whores, mystics are evil, yoga brings demons, we don't really care that they use words like little swords, because that's the other part. There's a weak energy behind those who maintain that which is a low frequency. So 3D, 4D, they suffer and distort with narratives, the divine feminine, divine masculine story. No divine masculine or feminine would test each other. They won't be divine either. So you can catch up on the shorts. And so with the Mystic's Skeptic Diary, I'm continuing to confirm that science does prove what works. Does not disprove God or that which are the spirituality ancient ancestors. Now, I would like you to understand that I love to learn from smart people, and then from those who are pseudo-intellectuals, I still can grab the data points. So when someone's distorting something with their likes and dislikes, I'm able to easily, like Dr. Daniel Siegel taught me, differentiate, which is why you don't fuck with or mess with Maria's biosphere. As always, we're all selfish. You'll hear a man tell you that, and more than just one, women as well. I will let you know that there's those who have spectrums or scales for selflessness and selfishness, but we all are selfish, essentially. The difference is the ones of us who are not needing to watch our fucking back. That's why you can't fuck with a divine feminine who's also her own divine masculine, and then you won't be able to fuck with a divine masculine because they would be a divine feminine, which makes them a somatic empath, which makes them emotionally intelligent, which makes their insights up. So they know how to live with vulnerability, and that's consistently. So they don't numb their emotions with unhealthy habits. They don't numb their thoughts with unhealthy habits. They don't need to numb in any way, shape, or form because they like to feel. So we don't suffer life when we're using prefrontal. Now, Robert Sapolsky with his book Determined, he's saying we have no free will. I beg to differ. I know God personally. I'm in communion with him. And then I know Akash and Source, infinity and beyond, but I also know scientists like Dr. Daniel Siegel. And so when you get your brain integrated, I've been in a number of courses with him. Then I know Terry Real, I have courses with him too. Then I have Peter Levine courses. Okay, so any human being that I've met, scientists, Bessel van der Kolk, will tell you, you can't talk sense to someone about getting their health online, but there's health to be had. Oh, by the way, the body is headed that way in the first place. So when you see 3D, 4D, remember, they're choosing convenience over everything. Their unhealthy habits is why they taint every single bit of divine feminine, divine masculine, mystic stories with evil, Knievel, medieval, and good and bad and all of that. So when somebody doesn't have the capacity to feel deeply, they will have a downregulated insula, and the depth of emotions is not what they want. They want a story to stay within a very low frequency dopamine hit. And that's why the ego is not brilliant to those of us who have an ego and a self. And it doesn't die for people who talk to you about the shadow work they do on a screen. You will notice that people are their ego and self when they are with integrity, compassionate, understanding, and loving, because every 24 hours they've chosen to do that, which is the bright sides of neuroplasticity. Also, we self-regulate whether someone else is in a high frequency or not. That's why we do the mindset workout that we do, inner growth mindset. So you work with anger, healthy. You work with fear, healthy. When I get irritated, you can hear about it. Sad, healthy. You know when you're being triggered, so you know shit that comes up because you can see your own images. You know, we have flashbacks, okay? Sensations, you know what they, like my panic attacks, I can recognize, even though now that the Mystic's Diary. So bowel movement's great. IBS no longer. Was it ever a real thing, or was I just lacking nutrition? Was it, who knows? There can be various, but I'm still, various variables, but I'm still like getting into like, wow, this is awesome. So, you know, like when it's over and you're like, is it really over though? No, do I need to watch my back? So see, this is very easy. And so people are healing from the trauma stuff from their body. They get to have the same as well. I remember I asked a couple of them that had gone to good therapy how it felt to finally be able and feel at ease, and some of them said weird but nice. And so that's nice to know of the ones who take healing their trauma seriously. Then there's the ones who don't take it at all, and we get to watch the hostile, the doomsdayer, the doer, the are we good, and the ghost. Those are childhood trauma personality types that Patrick Tian has spelled out. Or why your CPTSD isn't getting better. He also spells out this. So he helps people who want to heal. And that's why I mention him. So you can check him out if you know anybody who wants to heal and who wants to become the present grown-up them, and therefore then handle their past, the child stuff. So when my child stuff comes up, I know it's coming up. As Aristotle mentions, he thought that a friend you love is considered a second self, someone whose pain feels like your own. Okay, so the biosphere, while some people think that we are always calibrating to one another, we don't. I asked Dr. Daniel Siegel about my biosphere. Terry Real talks about the biosphere for couples. Dr. Daniel Siegel uses it, and it's about interconnection. And so, for example, I have George Fowler in front of me for a minute. As he points out, I'm not going to use all of it word for word, but when you have a person next to you who offers to promise the promise of vitality, of life force, of connection, of warmth, and instead it feels like that person doesn't even know you. So he uses the word lonely. Patrick Tian would talk to you about a half-safe person. Okay, so this is when you have adaptive child part people. They're protected, not connected. And so you will pick that up. But that's the part of why when you are able, like any mindfully living person will be able to pause any moment, your thoughts and your feelings, to breathe, like with the panic attacks, they give me plenty of practice, and to recalibrate. That's called you're self-regulating. Even when I've had someone yelling in my face, I was able to do that. I talked about it. So your biosphere is not fucked with by anyone because you're able to maintain that 5D frequency, the enlightenment frequency, that's which we're talking about. So you're anchored always in ventral energy, and the practices that you do with your thoughts and your feelings matter. Now, today we also talked a lot about how words don't matter. The words that I'm talking about are when people are conveying their messages, which is why when you hear someone say that we have a spiritual crisis, there's no spiritual crises. I'm going to get to that one in a minute. There's a bunch of people who follow Peter Pans around and monkeys, And that's the masculines, who are basically what they like works, what they don't like, and that's why adopted child part people are hypocrites. So it's not lonely, it's that you get to meet the ones who don't notice that they're choosing and picking, cherry picking. So the Mystic's Diary, it serves for the whole 365 days. I told the nutritionist, I was like, look, you're under review too, by the way. I said I did a playlist so I could motivate myself and keep myself on track, and then talk about the results, which I'm doing right now. Like I said, the first month, I mean, for me, it's obvious why I got good results, because my body's in ventral vagal state. I don't scan myself and others, unlike those who need Dr. Amy Pegan or Patrick Tian or Cherio. Maria is a 3-year-old who doesn't need this. So by being myself, that's the owning of the sense of self that I've learned from Dr. Daniel Siegel. Observe, witness, narrate. You're integrated brain. Insta lights up. I'm connected completely. I'm an empowered feminine. I'm an empowered divine masculine because my left and right work together. I don't do structural dissociation. I do prefrontal cortex workout. When I'm triggered, I know what I'm being triggered about. I know my past. So I am the expert, and I'm also I'm my own safe haven, secure base. Okay, so with that body, with this ventral vagal state, living a lifestyle with eustress, the mental fitness is with eustress instead of distress, because the body is with a person who's self-regulating and self-led. No suffering life, feeling life, alive. The ones who feel pseudo-alive, they continue to numb themselves because aliveness is scary, because that's the point. They are with their own 3-year-old in the absence of taking that seriously. Find it hard to believe that first years of life, nothing's going to be done. And I've had plenty of people who think that their 3-year-old means nothing. So they don't take their vitality, their life force, their essence. They don't become whole, like my facade friend who stagnates, and other people, they stagnate eventually because the left will take over. And really, we only get to hear the higher self in moments where, so for example, you all know my lovely friend, the one that I told you couldn't see me. Yes, as he at times will say wisdom from his mouth, but really he forgets it. So the wisdom that comes forth, sure, today you're wise for 2 seconds, tomorrow you already forgot, and you are going to also switch moods. So people who are inconsistent, there's nothing to say except for emotionally immature people make choices, and that is to stay cut off from their own body. And you can't talk sense to anyone, like Bezel Banneker points out, and anybody else. And you can't make anybody acknowledge that there's at hand maladaptive patterns of behavior, inner critic, outer critic, because that's how it works, inner and then projecting, drinking, drugging, fucking, the business of self-soothing unhealthily, binge eating, binge whatever, and the body that's consistently in distress versus eustress. And so the end of the day, the most beautiful thing in your life, love, creativity, music, dance, and laughter, happen only when you keep yourself aside. As I shared in a quote, I'm like, you don't have to keep yourself aside, but I know what he's trying to say. May you know the joy and ecstasy of being in a state of abandon. So when you're using your ventral vagal state, you are in this lovely state of abandon, and that's why you will perceive other people's pain, because we bond through the heart, okay? And then we are somatic empaths, so we pick up on each other's, it's fragments. Let me see if I had my notes. Pretty sure I brought them with me this time, because usually I don't have them, but this one has some important notes that I took from one of my classes. Okay, so the review, the first month review, is that I am satisfied. I am happy. My nutritionist was happy, but she was very much, you did a great job, because as she pointed out, if you didn't follow the diet I gave you, we wouldn't have had the results. And so I got a little bit sloppy. I told her, and then I said, okay, for the holidays, I'm gonna, get a little sloppy. She's like, okay, but the one thing that I'm still working on is my physical activity. So I'm still not quite where I want to be with that one, but I will keep you posted. So we're gonna have a live at some point once the weather permits me to bring you all for a walk. And then I will also, at the 2-month review, catch you all up on that one. But in the meantime, let's see if I can find my notes. And that way we can also continue with, I wanted to read a little bit of the MUI and the Biosphere that I got. AI reviewed it a little bit for me. But before I do that, let me see. Okay. Sense of predictability. Was it this one? I don't remember. Oh no, here it is. There we go. Found my notes. So the body keeps the score. I'm sure you all will have heard of Bessel van der Kolk. If you are emotionally intelligent and mentally intelligent and into health and with science and spirituality, the body remembers what the mind forgets. Jacob Moreno. Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, if you want to know which way the wind is blowing, look at the sand. And so here's where people heal when they experience somatic empathy, when they feel understood just as they are, they feel felt. That is what heals. And if you look at the body, you will know how the person is feeling, doing, being. Watch their body. It will show you everything you need to know. Okay, the challenge about this welcoming is if you don't know how to feel yourself, your capacity to feel others is extremely diminished. It can't empathize at a deeper level and become a curative agent. So that would be where it's diminished. Okay, but the moment of feeling felt by another human being when someone else feels with them, that is enough for somatic experience. That depth of empathic person feels felt at a deep level, and with that and being seen, they will feel, and then they will also be able to take in that fragment. Okay, however, what I'm going to say is the fragment in isolation that is shared with another and now is welcomed. So like the person I was telling you about 2 seconds ago, or when it was, even if they share words of wisdom and they're welcomed, they're not healed because they're not on an actual good journey with a good therapist doing what it takes to get themselves whole. So your sense of self is yours only when you own all of those child parts. The essence of you, the vitality, and that which is a consistent, integral person is only going to happen when you have a person who chose themselves. That's why we are all selfish, and the ones who don't want us to be, well, they're the same ones who I actually laugh at, meaning that their words don't mean much because we all, if I plugged your nose, you would all for sure move away. And the words selfish or selfless and words, again, don't mean as much as others make them out to be, because if they're interested in the conversation, which is what grown-ups are, then they have a good time. If they're interested in proving, then they're not grown-ups. They're the ones who need to grow the fuck up, which is why they don't fuck with our biospheres, because that's the part. When you're in a low frequency room, let him who would move the world first move himself. Thank you, Socrates. When I see the 3D, 4D collective, I actually am always aware of who I'm dealing with, because every 24 hours they're showing me what they're made of. And they don't align with that which is love, God, Source, Akash, Anima Mundi, discernment, equanimous, loving. Creatorship and divinity is perfection, which is where it has no usage of words. It has no usage of giving scarlet letters. So however you would pose it, if you know that which is the truth is that you are not God or that which is, right? So you can't cast a stone. No, you could, but you're made of flesh, which is the part of why applying the spiritual essence of love. How do you apply love? So you can forgive as Jesus shared. You can sit in silence as Buddha sat. And with that, you become that which is your own inner master, which is why we're working on our 9th and 8th chakra. So a mystic, skeptic, nutritionist diary is because there's a bunch of people who say, follow your gut. My gut is good when it comes to picking up on all people's nervous systems. So good that if I feel physically threatened, I will get up and leave if I'm by myself. But my gut is not leading me when my brain is busy doing something that I love and ignoring that which is a disciplined 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as Hippocrates points out, a wise man knows that health is everything. He also points out people say they want to heal until the healing shows up as discipline, which makes me think of Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar. Okay, so people who don't care about their mental, emotional, and physical health is clear. And that's why it's not only the physical health, there has to be the emotional, because that's what comes first. And if you suffer life, then you're not going to have the regulation skills yet. And some people feel pressured, as the therapist and as those of us who are in the wellness industry are talking about it. Nobody's going to pressure anyone. So when I see shame be reactive, it's a teenager and a number of them who are like, we don't want to do it. Don't do it. Allow yourselves to understand, though, that the baby pacifier stuff. I mean, even though I thought it was hilarious, this video that came out, it's likely that willpower won't get you out of bad habits. That's not true. It's likely that with willpower, and then with Dr. Amy Pegan, with healing, you will be able to break bad habits because you will have committed to yourself and to being that which is action. Speaks louder than words, because that's the point. So hypocrites like to just use words. That's why they just blah, 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 blah. But then you don't see them committing to that which is common sense. Why did I start a nutritionist diet? Because I am 45. I wrote in that little bio of our lovely playlist. And I'm smart enough to know what health is, and I'm smart enough to know what my weaknesses are, which is I like to do what I do and I forget to eat. And so how is Maria going to, I'm not training myself, I'm not brainwashing, I don't objectify. When you're in the shame stuff, the shame continuum, you objectify. Remaining mindfully aware, and within the gratitude and prefrontal is what I'm doing. And Maria, right here, this in flesh, every 24 hours, I might die tomorrow. I'm going to leave the best version of myself to the kids. And, I love my family and loved ones, and I wouldn't want to have them suffer because I decided to be that which is what? Let me think, what's the word? Irresponsible with something so common sense. So objective means that I can have the capacity to clearly, with logic and genuineness, know what it is. That's what a grown-up knows how to do without whining about it. A 3-year-old whines. No, a 3-year-old doesn't whine. A 3-year-old is immature. A grown-up is mature. So when I'm seeing the grown-ups who are whining, it's not true that it's inherently enlightening or healthy to be non-reactive. It's dangerous to have no emotions. That's so stupid. You can't have physically no emotions. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you the same one? I found it hard to believe the first season of life means shit. When you explain implicit memory and explicit memory to people and they don't understand what it is, they just say, it's bullshit. Yes, you know what? It is bullshit. Yeah, come on, flat earthers, have a good time. So everybody could join the flat earther group, or the group that doesn't believe in the moon. That's why grow the fuck up is what I would want to say to every 3D, 4D. Stop talking about the divine feminine and divine masculine. If they were anywhere near divine, like anybody else who's using that word in the way that they are, AI is a monster. Oh my gosh, wow, what year do you come from? Please. So being able to be objective means I know my bad habits. I know what's bad for me and good for me. If I want to use the word smart, stable, mature, adaptive, rational, teachable, but even if I want to use the word smart, this is where for me, smart means that I know common sense, which also means that I'm not going to whine about something that's good for me. Otherwise, like when I was smoking cigarettes, people would say, you're going to get cancer, you're addicted to it. I said, look, bring it in, bring it on, I'll take it. And I let them speak it. And did I think Maria was smart while she was smoking? No. But did I stop? No. But at least I had the capacity to be objective about it. And so this is where, to me, when they're all bitching about the modern day therapist, what I would love to see at some point, and I'm sure we'll have it, because sooner or later someone's gonna be like, you know what, I suffer life, I have shame, I want to keep it. Not there's an avoidance. She goes on screen, says, because you're talking about us, I'm coming and talking about us. And I didn't go to therapy anymore because they said I was doing a good job, and all they had me do is journal and do mindfulness or whatever it was. And why should I? All people are fucked up anyways. That sounds like a lame ass excuse of a teenager. So whenever I hear people are fucked up or the world is crumbling, sure, give yourself a pity party, go have fun with it, go be in the world of it's unfair, we can't do equanimity, we have to do lightning. That's why it's a fake badass. I'm so happy I'm a grown-up. When I was a kid, I remember the grown-ups teaching us about the popular kids and the ones who wouldn't be good to be following around. In fact, I had noticed at a certain point that we all did look up to a person who was not to be followed around. And I figured it out. So I said, okay, the grown-ups were smart about some things at that point, and I was wrong about some things. But then I continued to grow up. So today I can tell you our ancestors knew some things. They don't know instead, the ancestors, that there's no demon. No, now we know. We're putting it in the sphere. There's no demonic possession. Hey, there's no monster. Stop giving a monster a name that doesn't exist, and stop dehumanizing people who need help. Actually, what it is weak people need help. So see, if we can spell it out, the more you can spell it out, the more those who won't like to be around 5D. You know why? Because that's the sweet revenge. Is evil doesn't exist in that way. The ones who suffer that which happens, yes, in my mind's eye, I still see the little girl with the little, no, he's trying to give her something to drink. I know what's happening. I know all about it. So People think we pretend. We don't pretend to not suffer life. We actively, mindfully live life, and we do what we can to bring forth that which is the best version of ourselves, at least the ones who leave a legacy behind. The ones who leave little breadcrumbs, we know who they are. I am sorry. God's chiming in. He said, that's not nice. So that's not nice, but they fuck with our biosphere. No, they don't. But then again, we do pick up on each other. So with that being said, actually, did you know that in one of the summits that I got to listen to Tara Brach, she mentions it, so does Stephen Porges. And I remember that was a year where I had finally acclimated to having not only pick up my oversoul as a mystic, but also the glow. And then I moved out to more. So I had 2 Kundalini awakenings, light body, rainbow body. I have a nice little timeline going on. I got 3 twin flames. Okay, so with that being said, what I wanted to read to you all were a couple of things. Okay, so for the biosphere, that's a terrestrial word, and I personally don't think of it the same exact way, that the biosphere will pay you back, because I don't ask for money. So what I'm trying to say is I self-regulate. Securely attached, non-traumatized people, we self-regulate in the absence of other. That we can co-regulate, yes, but when you're meeting the low-frequency individuals that are going to be around you, that's when I've learned, thanks to Dr. Dan Siegel, who has them not only his explanation, but I got to ask him a question, and that was, how do I handle when I'm in a room? And he said, Maria, I think you need to differentiate more. Or he said, I think you're not differentiating enough. You need to do it more, something like that. And that I understood. So when you're in your prefrontal and you're like, okay, 2 seconds ago I was okay. Because of my panic attacks, I already knew how my nervous system felt, so I knew how to expand my window of tolerance. It's now a window welcome. And then I put that even more into practice. And so that's why when I'm out and about, I'm able to easily self-regulate. I'm able to notice. That doesn't make it easier or harder, because it still reminds my body of panic attacks if I'm in a specific type of environment, but it's getting better. So the biosphere doesn't pay me back, because when I'm in a low frequency, I'm not getting that frequency. What I'm getting is to perceive another nervous system, pick up on whatever it is that's going on around me. If it's one individual, then you pick up also on that, which is their inner world, the fragments, all of that. Doesn't mean that they're picking up on anything, because people who are not consciously aligned with their whole self, like my facade friend, basically that's why it's Cusco. So whatever I'm saying doesn't even mean I'm being heard correctly. Whatever I say doesn't even mean I'm going to be remembered correctly. I mean nothing to that person except for whatever it is that their left brain is saying. That's where Shiva comes in, because Kali already knows what's going on. Shiva comes in, I'm nothingness, and Krishna Lila makes it all fun. And so with your mental, emotional, physical mastery, you're able to continue being the authentic version of you, not suffer life. And there you go. Jesus suffered for our sins. He didn't know how to self-calibrate, self-regulate. Or, I'm sure he just didn't know about the explanation, since the scientists weren't there to explain to him how our embodied brains work. Because I'm lucky in this lifetime to have that, I get to tell you, and the practice of when I've been in presence of people, like the one that was yelling at me, all of a sudden we're having fun and I'm getting yelled at, and all this stuff came up, and I didn't want to. I was like, okay, because I had practice with the panic attacks. I was able to recalibrate it and to stutter words, and then to become friends again, and nothing happened of horrible. Did my interaction and biosphere created support the person to become their highest timeline? I don't know, but you better bet that I'm not going to have expectations, because that's what friends are for good times and bad times, and that's any relationship. So your biosphere doesn't have to pay you back. Doesn't matter what kind of relationship is. You're building secure connections, and even the secure attachment figures can be built. However, if a person is not their own secure attachment figure, so they're not their own sense of self, they don't self-regulate in the prefrontal, then they're not going to be a safe haven, secure base for anyone, because they don't know how to self-regulate in their ventral vagal state. So they are actually going to be like my facade friend, which we're going to get to in a minute. The other part that I wanted to read to you. Okay, so here, there is no courage without vulnerability, because courage is the willingness to show up and be all in when you cannot predict the outcome. And this is a quote by, I forget the name of the person, but I believe the last name might be Brown, B. Brown, something like that, but I might be wrong. Okay, so it's not mine, but it's also just a sentence that I'm sure you've heard before. And so, courage without vulnerability. Yes, strength and courage from open-ended inquiry and curiosity. I personally don't find it courageous to be able to cry and get angry healthily and afraid. My personal subjective, emotionally intelligent people don't think we need rewards for when we're doing emotions. But apparently, a bunch of people don't know how to be vulnerable because they're not vulnerable with themselves. And so they're cut off from their body, downregulated, insulin. Mine is not. Courage is the willingness to show up and be all in when you cannot predict the outcome. Yes, you don't half-heartedly do anything in life, let alone a relationship. So this to me again seems second nature. I will always not know what tomorrow will bring. That doesn't mean that I will not show up 100%. Okay, so when you have people who are authentic, they're being themselves, they're able to show up, they've grown the fuck up. They're not going to be looking for some little reward or to throw stones at people that don't have the capacity to move into becoming their grown-up version. And that's because it's a personal choice. And so I find that believing in yourself is not something that you have to be rewarded for, being yourself also. But I do find that there's a lot of people that don't know how to, because if they did, then they would know how to be in a state of abandon and enjoy an ecstasy all by themselves. No need for substances, no need for TV, no need for any, and they would be able to enjoy each other because that's what friends are for. So relationships are beautiful. What would life be without your society? This is where I don't look at my peers. When I say that, and when I say I don't think about words as important, what I'm talking about is every single hypocrite out there that I've ever encountered. The timber at a certain point will become clear. Once that's clear to me, I've seen your 5 hands, Cusco. Now you're completely simply that which is called Cusco. Okay, so in this sense, Maria's talking about those teenagers, which is why I said sweet revenge, quote unquote. It's not revenge. It's that I always said, good always wins. Love wins. God wins, not evil. Once I got to 20, there's no monster, just cowards. Today I'm a grown-up. I have understanding. I have the explanation. I have the proof. It's what works. Science. Spiritual ones, if they're bypassers, they're morons. That's how I'm going to bring it to you. The pseudo-intellectuals, well, I have news for you. They're morons to me too. Anyone who is basically giving me a narrative, distorting it with their likes and dislikes, to Maria is going to be a moron. Because I can see what you like and don't like, and you don't have the capacity to speak it to me like a grown-up. So like my facade friend, when I said you're a hypocrite because you don't know how to keep your word. You don't know how to be yourself. You don't know how to do shit. And I told my friend exactly how I thought because that's why he's like a brother to me. And he's looking at me. He's like, you're a hypocrite. Or no, I asked him, I said, what do you think? And he said, you're a hypocrite. And I said, no, I'm not. And then I said, wait a minute. In my head, I had a download. He has a point. He has a point. Let him talk. Why am I a hypocrite? And as he spoke, I'm like, yep, that's okay. I get your perspective. Because for him, the fact that I say this and that are true are hypocrisy. And guess who are the people who have an issue with this and that being true? It's called non-bilaterally integrated brain people. They're left brain alone, which is why they're like the land of adaptive child part people. They're all the same, all of them. And so today, in the year 2025, after all of the oversoul, all the twin flames, all the soul, all this stuff, but attachment trauma educated, every 24 hours counts. Bright sides and their plasticity, awesome, you're going to be back. Dark sides, probably not. It's okay. Inspiring human potential was never about motivating people to be their self. It's about inspiring you to continue to be yourself the smart way, and then to inspire the future generations, which you better bet, the ones who are in a low frequency, they're holding, what is it called? A placeholder. They're holding a placeholder for that which is any of those who do not actively want to get their 2 hands and 2 feet to love themselves first and to become connected to their body, because that's how masculines work. With the left brain alone, it's not men. They're closed off, self-righteous. They pass on the legacy of their baton. So it's quite unimpressive. Their words mean nothing. They're unimpressive words. Sure, they have golden nuggets. So I have a story. I'm going to use it. The first encounter, let him who would move the world first move himself, Socrates. People love to use all these sentences. I know when I'm seeing it happen. Gary V, he's awesome. I love that man. Dan Martell, also awesome. He knows what to do with mediocre people. They're dangerous. Get rid of them. No, you can hang out. I say make it your opportunity to not copy them and to also be respectful and to remember that some people are that weak because they didn't get a good end of stick. So it's not that they're weak. Their child was strong, like the little girl that I'm still seeing in my eyes being strong. Once they become adolescents, now they're beginning to become not strong. But if they had the first 8 years, they're playing out that which happened to them. So it's not really their choice, which is why the evil scale of Michael Stone, we got a 0 to 9, those poor unfortunate souls who get buffooned by the 9 to 14 charming are not charming to smart human being. I'll see right through you because my mother taught me healthy manners and what grown-ups who manipulate do. And then she taught me how she's going to defend me. And then I learned how to harness it my own self in my own Maria way, which is why when I didn't speak to my friend for 5 years and I spoke to him again, my entire family was like, wow, she must really love you. She don't change her mind. I didn't change my mind. I did the right thing because God taught me manners, and so did my mom. And my friend had no friends because that's how big of an asshole he is. That's how selfish my friend is. His only friend left him vomiting after the 14-year first significant relationship breakup. And I'm like, why are you not having him come out with us? No, he doesn't want to come. I say, give me his number. I call him up. He comes out. I see 2 roosters dancing, fucking different women, same women. And I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't see the fucking part. I found out about it later. And I just thought nothing of that because by the time I got to college and heard people fucking and miserable, I thought, STDs, anyone? It's not cool, you know? Like, aren't you supposed to, like, be enjoying a human being? What are you doing? Are you a piece of meat? This is not about the sex revolution. You actively are disrespecting your own body, and then you're not even happy. Why are you whining to me about it if you're not, like, to stop? So when you meet in college years, adaptive child part people, now I have a word for it, you think, okay, they could have all gone to therapy. Patrick Tian went to therapy as a 20-year-old because he had a bad breakup, so anyone can do it. And that's why, as he points out, cowards. Yes, all the ones who ignore the fact that they could get healed. But it's a little bit too harsh sometimes. So let me take it back a notch and just say that there's opportunities for anyone, and the ones who are denying Patrick Tian and to go heal are the spiritual bypassers who think they've raised their frequency and that they've healed themselves and they've not, or the ones who have self-righteous contemptuous batons who are not thinking about therapy when they're a hostile doomsdayer doer, are we good, or the ghost, or that their CPTSD isn't getting better, or that they're not giving up on a relationship that's bad for them, or that they continue to crap on all the mental health stuff and being compassionate, and that's a huge red flag, or that they get upset at people who have good childhoods and think we're the spoiled brats of the situation, all this stuff. So when you see people who are carrying a baton of that which is ancient news and ancient history, there's plenty of young ones, teenagers I've met. No, they're not teenagers. This is, I'm talking young adults from college that I have friends that are other friends. They're still adolescents too, but they're on their way to copy. Remember, there's shamans for the unseen, because I had a conversation with one of them, and they actively put on a pedestal a very human being who has no pedestal. I mean, yes, they're doing great for where they come from, but they're not to be looked up to because they're unhealthy. They have an unhealthy pattern. It goes from rigid to chaotic. When anything is disrupted in an effort for that person to maintain their sanity, they actually have, like, it's not even a Sheldon. And so this is why, like, anyone who's going to college at this point and doesn't have the capacity to understand science is telling you how to achieve your best life, or doesn't want it, this is actually why we are living dharma and not karma. Everything, I got a message, it was a couple months ago, everything will be as it always has been. The only difference is now it's dharma instead of karma. So the karma stuff, the way I'm going to bring it to you, are the trauma charges, the subconscious. That's why 4D, whenever they're picking up on anything, they're always like picking up on it like it's overwhelming their nervous system, because they don't have a window welcome. They got a window tolerance. And so with that being said, and the frontal lobes are flopped down, they're using their amygdala. There's studies that show those who have that survival mode on, that's why their brain, they're using it with a non-bilaterally integrated brain. And so, or this is how I'm going to explain it to you, but every 24 hours counts. So the person you will be tomorrow is reflective of the person you are today. And every time you're choosing to think something and feel something, And really you feel it first, but if it's hard to feel and it's hard to think, that's the whole point. That means that there's work to be able to be done. People don't want it. They might use the word mental fitness as a lifestyle, but are they using it? And if their body isn't in ventral vagal state, it doesn't matter if you're doing mental fitness. You're still suffering inside. So those who choose convenience over everything, we all do. Those who choose habits, that's why those scientists were saying it's likely even with willpower you don't break a bad habit. That's not true though, because you have willpower for real when you use your brain, bilateral, vertical, overall. You will have common sense. You'll have the objectivity to know here's what truth is. There's data points. Here's what other stuff is. And you won't be bitching about what you like or don't like. So when I've seen people who look at how people's brains react, let's say you don't believe in the environment and you get a study that tells you the environment is in danger, the brain doesn't move 1 inch. But if you get the study that shows that your proof that environment is something like, that it's not in danger. See, the scientists proved it. So when you have people who are on one side and another, my scientists, you got children in a room. You got a bunch of morons, okay? If you got an intellectual one who enjoys, by the way, learning and then enjoys what year it is and is like, wow, you know what? It's amazing. We got AI, we got technology, we got mystics. I mean, it's so amazing. We can talk about things and we can feel deeply. And that's where our community will join those communities. So science and spirituality, they don't disprove. Science proves there's no demons inside of anyone. Spirituality isn't in competition with science, and any of those who want to call themselves leaders who are actually treating it as if it were a competition, they're not really clear on we have different ways that we all can connect to God, and science is one of those ways. Just because they talk down to us and make fun of us, the ones who don't believe at all, doesn't mean that we're going to hold it against them. Any person who is in communion with Source, Akash, Anima Mundi will know it in one way, shape, or form. So, I mean, I do know there's a lot of times Sadhguru's gotten to talk to scientists and then to others, and he lacks some of information that would help. When I see what he has been able to achieve, he's amazing. And I remember there's one conversation he had, I mentioned it to you all. He had an opportunity to make an impact, but because he's, as he likes to tease, uneducated, what he's trying to say, he doesn't need to influence himself, but because he didn't know aspects of attachment trauma, he wasn't able to contribute in that conversation with a very good question, might I add. Now, doesn't mean it would have went well, because I have noticed that there are a lot of people that once they begin questioning in a certain way, it's not because they're actually curious about it. They're really, in their mind, they already have an answer, and their answer is that you're wrong kind of deal. So they're not curious about the exploration, which makes it for a very different conversation. I would have liked to see it be explored, but I don't know if it would have went down that path anyways, because again, the people who are crapping on the mental health professionals and the word compassion and the word be yourself, or the word love yourself first, all of the ones who are not completely informed on neuroscience, neurobiology, to the extent of understanding it with their own body, because they're not in a body that is theirs. They're not their own divine feminine, and they're not their own divine masculine, because they're not an integrated brain. And so thank you, Dr. Daniel Siegel, let me not forget about the biosphere and the thing, so that you can hear, because these are not mine. So Terry Real, this is AI Overview, and Dr. Daniel Siegel are prominent figures in relational psychology. They have 2 different titles, by the way, so there is another one that explained it better. In the meantime, though, it's me plus we, and I remember how he explained it, but I'm still going to use the concept. So they both talk about the importance of human connection and an integrated sense of self within the context of relationships in the larger world. Okay, so you can maintain your biosphere like I do when you're securely attached and non-traumatized, because you're an emotionally, mentally, physically intelligent person. So with that being said, anything you do physically, dietary, all of that will benefit you, because your body is already using eustress. Those who first need to get there, they have a challenge in front of them. That's why it's sad to say I don't like to see that we are going to have our 3D, 4D brothers and sisters, because it really means, like my facade friend, that they completely gave up on their dreams, gave up on themselves. So, I mean, are they living life? Yeah, they're living life. You know that there's a study that shows, based on your trauma history or whatever, like how many years you're going to live. I forget what it's called. And then I remember Dr. Daniel Siegel reviewed that with one of our courses, and like, but you don't have to, this doesn't have to be the outcome, because you can actually get integrated once you go to therapy. You can get the EMDR, child parts work, somatics, and then as you get integrated, you get to, and I'm smiling because I'm thinking of there's a couple of DID ladies that I've seen, and one is like, yay, I'm at 7 years. They said it should take 10 years or something like that. And she's very excited. That's what I love to see, is a person who's healing, because again, like Kylie, a narcissist, that's really hard. Like, I don't have a scary body. My body's safe. They have a body, the emotional body, you see? So the pseudo-aliveness, that's why they're numbing, because it's uncomfortable to actually feel deeply. So I joke and whatnot, because the point is, here at IHP, it's for after the therapy. And also because there's a bunch of people who are ignoring completely to do the cool thing, go get themselves healed. And they actively are Pinocchios on that island. I have new stories, because that's the only way I can actually help you understand this is what adaptive child part look like. And as they get older, they don't look prettier. They look dumber by the minute. I swear, my facade friend and I, we haven't talked. I'm kind of scared to call him up. I don't want to hear him complain about anything or talk to me about the scary AI or, whatever bullshit. Or then there's the other spiritual bypassers that now, I'm intuitive. I want hypnotherapy, Maria. I want you, what you just told me, you require first therapy, then me, not now. Me, no. Therapy, yes, and then me. So we, Dr. Siegel, to represent the integration of individual self-identity, me, with a sense of belonging and connection to others, we. And so, like he says, we're a guitar string, and we calibrate to each other. And as he helped me to differentiate more, it works. So I don't have to walk into a room and be like, I'm going to leave. I walk into a room and I hang out. And sometimes if it's really bad, so the music is a low frequency, that does remind my body of panic attacks. But if I can sit through it long enough, I can recalibrate, and that's why it's all good. Biosphere is a metaphor. Terry Real uses the metaphor that you don't just marry a person, you create a new biosphere. And he says, this aligns with Siegel's view that the brain is a social organ and relationships are essential nutrients for survival and health. Both highlight that relationships form a larger interconnected system that needs nurturing. I don't know if those are words he's used, but for example, Stephen Porges also talks about that. That's why love is only when we're securely attached within ourselves and securely attached figures for each other. And that's because we can self-regulate in our ventral vagal state. We're comfortable to be with each other all the time and not in a visceral. It's in a safe haven, secure base. So it's a healthy father, mother, and that's for people, healthy parents, a third of tune in, repairing ruptures, not passing down the trauma stuff for today with all the information that's out there. As for people that are in relationships, this is the part of where if you're grown up, you're doing it with or without a person. So you can't fuck or mess with anyone's biosphere when they're emotionally, mentally, and physically a master of themselves. So being yourself the smart way. Stable, mature, adaptive, rational, teachable. Mystic, spiritual, mindful. Science doesn't go against spirituality. God encourages, comforts, supports, and strengthens his children. And Mother Earth guy and all that. So when I see spiritual bypassers, they're always competing with subject matters. When I see pseudo-intellectuals, they're competing with subject matters. Subject matters are subject matters. Words, blah, 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 blah. That's how insignificant they mean when I have to remind you it's not because they're insignificant. It's because a bunch of people make a big deal out of them in ways that are divisive and don't actually get anything done. No, and they're also hypocrites because they distort everything. There's mutual respect and collaboration between Terrell and I didn't know that, and Dr. Daniel Siegel. The two men are friends and colleagues. That makes sense. Have presented at the same conferences. I love them both. I love all the scientists that are out there. They all help anybody who wants to. That's why who wants to actually take care of leaving a legacy behind. The ones who pretend to, that's for the ones who don't want to be in a biosphere for real. So like my facade friend, sure he loves me, But in the meantime, I had a very serious conversation with my friend the first 2 days that I and him made friends again because he was in the shithole. And I told him, I told you what I told you because you judge a book by its cover. And then I also yelled at him after 3 years because he didn't stay being himself. But this word today, I can tell you, any fake person, they're a performance with a mask. So again, you don't know how to be yourself with ease. So my friend thought that by not telling me he didn't believe in God and he didn't believe any of the shit that I go through, that he was being nice. I don't do nice. That's not nice. That's actually not nice at all because you are wasting, I told him, our time. And I don't need to share with you something that you don't even believe in and that you're actually talking shit about, meaning making fun of. So you're not respecting my journey. But I had already had the debate with him about respect, and I realized that people who don't own their biosphere, their own, with their own self and all their child parts, that's why they're not connected. They're not really in the relationship because they care to meet another in the very deep, deep, deep way that those of us who have our connection with ourselves. So they're not in it for the same reasons. And it's not because they don't want it, it's because they can't. You physically need to grow self-empowered, enlightened, become your sense of self. I've seen a woman stare at me like this. There's no energy vampires. That's because she doesn't know how to self-regulate by herself. She doesn't own her sense of self yet, and that's because she either has avoidant, ambivalent, or disorganized. Avoidant, they're cut off from their emotional body. Ambivalent, they're revved up. I know both types, and I do also know disorganized attachment. I know please appeasers. I know the shame submitters, the attached criers. It's not fun to be around people who don't know how to be grown up. So it's just like something you get used to. But again, thanks to Dr. Danny Siegel, I just learned how to continue differentiating. And Tara Brach mentions how we perceive each other. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's something that's, you get used to it, and I'm used to it, and now I get to share with you all how it is for a 5D mystic in the Enlightenment Soul Age group to pick up on our Earth and beyond, though, but beyond it's the stars, so they maintain their frequency like any other crystal, and the 5D collective, so those who do know how to harness their nervous system, mental fitness as a lifestyle, and emotional well-being. Join us again. So being yourself the smart way, and we will have more mystic entries for this lovely nutritionist diary. We're going to see what she updates my lovely I told her that I needed some other options because of the amount of money that is required here, but also the lack of flavors. It's very sad to say. Yes, the food is completely different, but who knows, maybe that will change over time. So in the meantime, thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.